We have all heard the rule. To reach the top of any field, you need to put in 10,000 hours of practice. We accepted this as the definitive threshold for achieving mastery. But if you look closely at the study on violinists that started this whole idea, the data reveals a different story. 10,000 hours was simply the average amount of time those musicians had practiced by their 20th birthday. At 20 years old, these musicians were still students. That 10,000-hour total simply recorded the practice sessions they'd logged during their youth, rather than a final certificate of expertise. We built an entire culture of productivity around an arbitrary number, assuming that sheer volume is the only route to greatness. We carry this volume-based mindset into our daily lives, sitting at our desks for 8, 10, or even 12 hours straight, expecting a direct return on our time investment. In reality, those long stretches rarely look like deep focus. We set down to work, but the day quickly fills with long lunches, endless emails, and domestic distractions like walking the dog. When a deadline actually forces us to grind through 10 nonstop hours, we experience a steep, compensatory drop in output the next day. We spend the morning dragging our feet, completely drained. Our brains naturally reject prolonged industrial-era schedules. If the 8-hour continuous workday is a biological mismatch, we need to locate the actual limit for deep, demanding work. The original violinist study did reveal a real pattern for success, but it had nothing to do with total volume. The top performers practiced in highly concentrated sessions of 60 to 90 minutes, usually twice a day. This specific timing works because high-intensity focus consumes massive amounts of energy and mental stamina. Because of these hard biological limits on cognitive load, our focus hits a ceiling at roughly 4 hours per day. To get the absolute most out of that finite budget, we can use structured pacing frameworks like the Pomodoro technique. Slicing work into chunks of 25 minutes of active focus, followed by a 5-minute break, perfectly matches our sustainable rhythm for learning and hard problem solving. True productivity means maximizing the quality of those short bursts. You are not training for a marathon. You are spending a strict, non-negotiable 4-hour biological budget. Utilizing those precise 4 hours requires eliminating all friction, but most of us suffer from a pattern of entrained interruptions. You know that feeling where you reach for your phone even though it hasn't buzzed? Your brain is trained to expect a message, so you unconsciously seek out the distraction. Researchers recently tested this by having people place their phones in a bag beneath their chairs, completely turned off. Even then, the participants' cognitive flexibility suffered a hit. Just having the device nearby creates an invisible attention tax. Your brain burns background energy unconsciously anticipating a call, draining the precise resources you need for complex thought. You cannot enter a deep clutch state if your environment constantly triggers your brain's unconscious anticipation of a distraction. When you hit a cognitive sticking point on a hard project, the answer is not to push harder. The answer is to completely shut off your information intake. Practices like 20 minutes of formal meditation create forced constraints. You sit down, set a timer, and stop your brain from grabbing onto external stimuli. If you let your mind drift without looking at a screen or listening to a podcast, you enter the integration phase. You free up the background bandwidth required to finally connect complex ideas. Letting the mind wander provides the necessary space for the brain to consolidate new information, turning raw facts into actual expertise. The path to elite performance requires abandoning the expectation of the 8-hour grind. Instead, fiercely protect a few focused 90-minute sprints each day. To make those sprints count, physically remove all digital distractions. Put your phone in an entirely different room so your brain can stop carrying the weight of unread notifications. True mastery comes from respecting how we are built. It demands intense, isolated effort, followed closely by intentional, disconnected rest.